Well, hello and welcome to our program. My name is Thorin Tritter. I'm the Museum and Programming Director at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, which is located in Glen Cove, New York. I'm really excited by today's program, which will give us a sneak peek at some of the works that will be performed at a special Hymns from Auschwitz concert to be performed at Carnegie Hall on April 20th in tribute to Victor Ullmann and Michel Assael, and in honor of Martin Elias. And let me add, I'm just going to get it into the chat box here. We are giving a 25% discount code for those of you who are interested in attending the concert. So we'll put that in the chat and you can use that to buy a ticket to the concert on April 20th and you'll get 25% off. Before we get to our presentation today, I want to take an opportunity to just share some other upcoming programs that we have at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. This coming Thursday, we're hosting a program with best-selling author Meg Waite-Clayton. We'll be speaking about her best-selling book, The Last Train to London, and about the Kinder Transport, which lies at the heart of that book. Then on Sunday, March 27th, we're holding an in-person concert for peace at our building, to raise funds for the United Ukrainian American Relief Committee. So come to our building on Sunday. We'll have a performance, and we hope we can work to relieve some of the suffering taking place in the Ukraine. And one last program to mention, on Sunday, April 10th, we'll be holding the next program in our Sunday with Survivor series, in this case with Holocaust survivor Judith Steele. We'll talk about her family's effort to get out of Germany when she was just an infant, traveling on the ill-fated SS St. Louis, only to be returned to Europe, where her family was sent to the Gurs internment camp in France. Her father was able eventually to put her into hiding with a Catholic family, but she never saw her family again. So I hope you'll join us for her presentation as well. Okay, enough advertisements, and let me stop sharing my screen. And let me introduce the first two speakers that we're going to have this afternoon, and that is the world-famous Maestro Gürer Aykal and the renowned pianist, composer, and soprano Renan Koen. So if I could get you two to turn your cameras on and join us, I hope that that'll be possible. Let me just click one more button on my side here. There we go. Well, welcome. Maestro Aykal has a long and distinguished career conducting orchestras across the globe, and in 2018 founded the New Manhattan Sinfonietta as a New York City-based orchestra, where he serves as the music director and conductor. On April 20th, he will be conducting the performance at Carnegie Hall with the New Manhattan Sinfonietta Orchestra, so we're really looking forward to that. Renan Koen is, as I said, a pianist, a composer, a soprano. She's also a Holocaust educator and writer, having developed the March of the Music movement, which takes young people to Theresian to learn about the Holocaust in situ. And of course, she was instrumental and has been instrumental in creating the Hymns from Auschwitz concert. In the upcoming concert in Carnegie Hall, she'll be performing several pieces, including a piano concerto by Mozart. But overall, she's been working a lot on this program and I know has a lot to share with us. So thank you both for joining me today. Before I ask you any questions, I want to just urge those folks out there in the audience, if you have questions for our speakers, please use the Q&A function of Zoom, type those questions in. We're going to have a Q&A period after the presentation, and so please type in your questions and we'll do what we can to get to them at the end of our program. Okay, so Renan and Maestro, may I ask you to tell us a little bit of background about how this concert at Carnegie Hall came about?
Hi, I'm sorry. I have to apologize for my eyes. You know, I was going to go to operation for tomorrow. It was scheduled for tomorrow, but today I went to hospital and they were ready, so they did my operation. I'm terribly sorry. I'm gonna see you in one eye today.
Maestro, I'm so sorry. I didn't. Yeah, of course, absolutely. I hope that you'll recover quickly, and please don't feel you need to add any pressure or do anything for this. Thank you so much for joining us, but I understand.
I'm sure you know the hospitals, you know the COVID-19. So I don't know. I think, so clear and ready for them. So they made my operation. So I'm so happy. But I am. So I would like to tell you about that. So this concert is really it's something else that the public didn't hear those music. They are gonna listen first time because Assael, for example, I've told you before that he was born in Selanik, and also Mustafa Kemal was also born in Selanik. So I know where the Turks people lives in Selanik, and I know where the Jewish people also lives in Selanik. So it makes me so interested to look for his score. And I found a lot of tune that I've already know. I mean, the Turkish people already know those tunes, but it's not very openly with the composition mind, not the simple way. Renan, Miss Cohen found that I didn't know Assael, I didn't know this piece, so I'm always thanking her about this wonderful, wonderful project. The other piece is the Turkish one, is a young Turkish composer, which is also Renan works with this composer very much. And it's also going to be first time performed. It's again, you can feel a lot of tune or a lot of mode. You may find that already those music. Of course, Mozart is our prophet. Yeah, Mozart is our prophet, music's prophet. And the concerto is C minor, which is the concerto. I mean, because of this concerto, I'm sure Beethoven was so uncomfortable to write anything after Mozart. And I know her very well, and I know she's gonna play wonderful. I'm gonna do my best for her too. And please forgive my English. I'm a musician, not language. I'm not gifted for language. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maestro, and I appreciate those introductory words. Really, I look forward to it. Renan, do you want to add some more about how this concert came about and some of the pieces in it?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you, Maestro, for these beautiful words for me. And first of all, I would like to thank you for this opportunity and to be here. It is very meaningful for me. So since 2016, I have been collaborating with the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, both for my Holocaust concerts and my Positive Resistance Through Holocaust Reality educational program. This program is being held in very important places all over the world. As my special request, it was held at the United Nations, New York, a very precious place for me, on January 27, 2020, with the contribution of the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Turkish Consulate General in New York, and our permanent embassy to the United Nations. That day, legendary conductor for me, Mr. Gürer Aykal, whom I admire very much, surprisingly attended the event. In the following days, we decided to cooperate with the new Manhattan Sinfonietta, that its purpose and works I have been following with great appreciation. The maestro may be unaware, but I witnessed many of his talks while I was at the backstage waiting to congratulate him after his concerts. Most of these were marked by his desires for the continuity for orchestra and music for young musicians. It is already a priceless honor for me to be playing with the maestro. Moreover, my heartfelt unity in this project with an orchestra like the New Manhattan Sinfonietta is very meaningful to me. I would also like to thank dear Ibrahim for all his initiatives and efforts. When we decided to hold our concert at Carnegie Hall, I consulted the Maestro Aykal that I would like to order an orchestral work from one of my March of the Music students, Ercil Gürel, and he happily accepted it. Thus, I gave Ercil 3 musical themes from Greek Jewry, experiences in Auschwitz. And he composed a magnificent work called Hymns for Auschwitz for Hazan, piano and orchestra, which gave the title of the concert. Ottoman-rooted Hazan Nesim El-Nekave and his student İlker Nahmiyaz will be featuring for this remarkable work, which I constitute as a Sephardic Hazan choir in New York a few years ago for my Jewish liturgics project. Ercil is a very talented and sensitive composer and an exceptional person who puts his heart into everything he does. I have no doubt that Ercil's name will be heard worldwide in the future. I'm delighted and filled with emotions for becoming a part of this work with my piano. As the maestro asked me what I would like to play as a soloist, I told that I wanted to play Mozart's C minor piano concerto in honor of Victor Ullmann. Ullmann being a strong continuation of the German, Czech, Austrian rooted culture, that in February 2021, a miracle happened. My dear friend, Dr. Joe Halio, whose family roots go back to Turkey, who has and Greece, who has very valuable studies on Sephardic language and the Holocaust, writer and publisher of Dr. Albert Menashe diary, and he's a contributor and door guard to many Sephardic cultures, including the Kastorieli Synagogue in New York, as the continuation of the town of Kastoria, Greece, where my great-grandmother originates from, called me and said, Renan, I now have it, it's in my hands. Without hesitating, I understood what he was talking about. Undoubtedly, this must have been the orchestral work of the Auschwitz survivor Michel Assael, a Jew from Thessaloniki. He was talking about him since 2018 with me. Joe had been trying to reach this symphonic poem for many years. During my Holocaust concert in Kastoria, where my paternal family originates from, Joe and I had talked extensively about this work, and he was finally holding it with Michel Assael's manuscript. So he said, let me send it to you for you to evaluate whether it can be played or not. I waited for the score holding my breath. However, I realized as soon as I received that this was an extraordinary work. Then I called Joe saying, Joe, this is an outstanding work. First, we will have to transfer into the digital so that can be performed by an orchestra. Then I added, I have an upcoming concert at Carnegie Hall. What if I propose to Maestro for this unique work to be performed? Joe then mentioned it to Michel Assael's daughter, Deborah Assael. From that moment onwards, we were very excited all together, myself, Maestro, Ibrahim, Joe, and Deborah. Later, Joe asked me, would you like us to hold this concert together with the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Museum of Nassau? I had visited HMTC together with my cousin, Martin Elias, in 2018, and was very impressed. I was very excited about Joe's offer. I knew that they had very deep work on Greek Jewry for years. Joe mentioned it to Mary Menashe, and Meryl introduced us to Andrea and Gail. So 3 more people joined to our excitement. This is the short story of Hymns for Auschwitz concert. This is it, short one.
Thanks. You've introduced the whole concert, which is super, and you've given us a super amount of background.
Thank you so much.
I think, so I'd like to touch in this program, I'd like to touch on some of the pieces that you just talked about. Of course, we're going to get to the symphonic poem, Michel Assael's, but before that, I'd like to start where the maestro and where you started with the piece, the Mozart piano concerto. And I wondered if you could are you able to perform some of that for us? Can we hear what it sounds like?
Yeah, I would like to perform the fugue part of the third movement because the things that I would like to talk about, how I correlated with Ullmann and Bach, their, let's say, music ancestors, how I related. So if you would like me to play first, I'm gonna play first and then I'll talk about this, or vice versa.
Whatever you
like
think
it?
is best. I'm willing to follow your guidance, but I would say, yeah, why don't you play us a
Yeah,
part of
I
it and then we'll
talked too
talk
much,
about it.
so let me play a little bit. Let me
Super.
start from the second movement. So let's give a nice tune to the audience maybe first, and then I'll jump to the fugue part that Maestro is. I know that he's a great fan of the fugue art. That's why also I would like to play the fugue part as well. So second movement is starting with the solo piano solo, and then the orchestra follows. Let me play the theme of the second movement. And it continues with the same theme with the orchestra. So it's very hard to perform a concerto only with piano. It has to be performed with the orchestra. But the fugue part of the third movement is also a solo piano, so I can perform this as well. There are two fugues in the third movement. So I'm going to start with the first one. Continue this one. And the second fugue of the third movement. Yes, this is the fugue part. So maybe I would like to first ask to the maestro why this concerto is the concerto for you.
You know, I try to tell you that, you know, Beethoven, poor Beethoven. I mean, it's not easy after Mozart to write something, especially after the C minor concerto. Do you imagine second movement, you said, only piano starts. There is not something like that, you know. So we, of course, we see after that Beethoven fourth symphony, fourth piano concerto start with piano, but already everything being written by Mozart, those things. And I know that Beethoven also wrote a cadenza for this concerto. So it means he loves it also very much. To start this concerto, I do feel myself like conducting a big symphony, you know. Do, mi, do, sol, fa, mi, fa. I mean, unbelievable. And then the fortissimo, like, you know, it's already, Beethoven is already there. You know, Mozart gives everything to him, you know. So this is the perfect example for that. So I call the concerto. Also last movement, I mean, do, mi, re, do. I mean, it also comes from first movement, and second movement also comes. I mean, is unbelievable composition. It's like making a jewelry or something. You know, no notes come from something else. It's all do, mi, la, sol, fa, mi, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, sol, fa, mi, re, si, re, mi, do. It's everything is there. So I love this concerto, and how lucky Beethoven. So how lucky we are, and how lucky I am, because I'm going to play with you.
If I might just say, I mean, this is where we're just getting such a little taste here. And in the concert, we'll really hear the full orchestra, the concerto, the way it's supposed to be heard.
Yeah.
Renan, I think maybe it would be appropriate to bring in some of our other pieces. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to put on the how I correlated with Ullmann.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, Viktor Ullmann was born in Teschen. It was Hungarian, Austrian-Hungarian Empire at that time. Now Teschen is in Czech Republic. Viktor Ullmann was born in 1898. As a composer and music critic, he lived in Vienna and Prague. He was finally deported to Theresienstadt. There he encouraged his colleagues to compose, and despite the ban, continued to organize music nights and compose great works. We understand from the works of Ullmann and the music critics he wrote in Theresienstadt that Ullmann respected his musical ancestors and masters such as Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, even Schoenberg, and continued this tradition in his understanding of form in music. Although the content of his music is contemporary, he continued the fugue art in his last work, the Piano Sonata number 7, which he composed in Theresienstadt as a tribute to Bach, and by placing even his letters into the work. The title of this movement is Variation on a Hebrew Song and 4 Voices Fugue. I would like to quote the musicologist Michael Beckerman on this movement, which in my Positive Resistance book, quote, in the famous coda to the final of Mozart's Jupiter symphony, the main themes of the movement seem to orbit around each other in a kind of classical balance, cycling in timeless perfection. One of the most remarkable passages written in Theresienstadt, or anywhere else for that matter, is a moment in Viktor Ullmann's final composition, his Piano Sonata number 7, that seems to channel its Mozartian model. The movement I want to explore comes from the final fugal variation of the final movement of the sonata. Here is another non-transition transition, a kind of full stop, while Mozart's quadlibet moment is not, to our knowledge, based on actual song, nor does it imply real-world elements. When the word of the fugue comes to a halt in Ullmann's composition, it's filled with characters. First, Bach himself enters it in his solmization voice. Underneath, in the baseline, are fragments of the movement's main theme as a Zionist composition by Yehuda Sheret on a poem by Rachel. This is followed immediately by a clear quotation of that potent Czech war songs, Ye, who are God's warrior, in Hasid song from the 15th century, Yisteb Nietzsche Cancional, in the upper part of measure 140 and quote. Michael finishes here. So, and also Mozart was expelled from Vienna, where he lived at the time and took refuge in Prague. They are similar in this respect also. The C minor piano concerto, which seems cheerful, but is actually very sad in the depths, is very special in that it speaks both the orchestra and the piano. In terms of speaking piano with flutes, it also makes a reference to Dr. Menashe, who was the flautist in Auschwitz orchestra. It also has similarities with Ullmann's understanding of respect due to his fugues in the third movement. And I also want to say another very striking thing, that according to Dr. Menashe's diary, it is very likely that he and Michel Assael played music for Viktor Ullmann while he was being sent to gas chambers in Auschwitz. And for this fugue part, I will going to perform it in a Turkish house in pre-concert of Hymns for Auschwitz concert as well.
So there's a whole range of these connections that you're drawing out between Victor Ullmann and with
Yeah.
Dr. Albert Menashe and this piano concerto. That's great. That's really, it brings this together for us. At this point, let me bring in two of our other performers, and that is two people you've already mentioned, Carnegie Gürer Aykal, who composed some of the hymns from Auschwitz pieces, and Rabbi Nissim El-Nakave, a Chazan who will be chanting some of the Jewish liturgy in the concert at Carnegie Hall. So I'm going to bring those two on to the stage here. Let me see if I can get the rabbi also. Maybe I could ask you, Algil, to talk a little about how the piece that you wrote and something about what we're going to hear.
Hello, greetings to everyone who joins this meeting. Also, in the last meeting, I couldn't have a chance to thank, so I would like to start my words with my grateful thanks to dear Renan Koen and the great Maestro Gürer Aykal. To hear their words about me in glowing colors is a very big honor for me. I would also like to thank everyone who have become partner and make this meaningful event happen. Before the words about my piece, I would add my opinion about the situations. In 2019, within the scope of Miss Cohen's student movement March of the Music, I participated to the events in Terezin and Prague, and then I wrote a string quartet with those impressions. In the program note of the piece, I have defined my worry as human don't forget so that yesterday will never become tomorrow. We shouldn't forget the pain of yesterday, we shouldn't let it be forgotten, and what happened in the past would never be experienced again. But sadly, all this shame is being our present again, and that's exactly why it's even much more important to implement, to be able to organize events like this. Because we are inheritors, and what is left for us is the memories of the pain, the damned which has to be perished but never be forgotten. Because of pain, a human being tried to be freed of hunger, fear, or humiliation. Isn't it the purpose of life to escape of it and find some peace? Maybe the only wish of our ancestors who lived all of them together was the pain itself to be vanished. Now to hold over that wish for peace, just for not to write new pieces to new pains, we need you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And do I understand, Renan, you're going to perform some of what Algil has written?
Yes, there is a piano, very nice piano entrance after the orchestra. So if I may, Algil'cim, I would like to play this entrance, and then I would like to talk more about this Hymns for Auschwitz remarkable work.
Excellent.
Thank you.
This is a very small teaser, but I think you all understood how a strong, remarkable work this is.
You play so lovely, Ms. Koen. Thank you.
I don't know who to ask this of, but are there certain themes in your piece, Algil, that we should recognize? What should we hear? What should we be listening for?
Yes, as Maestro said, Orient modes are used in the piece, and also as its name, hymns from Auschwitz. Miss Koen gave me the hymns to work with as teams, and I work with those teams to lance the model Orient music of Greece and all Middle East. So you will really recognize the themes, because how you say, we say in our language, anonym. Miss Koen, can you help me how I
Sure.
can translate anonym?
Anonymous.
Yes, anonyms. These melodies are made of from anonyms. So Mr. Alnakave gave me the last part he sang. Then I composed on it. The whole piece is like a hymn or a prayer. When you hear, you will, I think, understand what I mean. I cannot tell it. My English is not enough to tell.
Rabbi, maybe I could ask you to share something about where you come into this and what you're going to chant and how it fits in with Algil's piece.
Maybe a little introduction before Rabbi might be good.
Sure.
Just few sentences. Well, as Algil mentioned, I gave to Algil 3 Greek Jewry themes from Auschwitz for his hymns for Auschwitz work, which gave the title of the concert later on. This first theme was the poem and its tune of Violet Mayo, who was deported from Rhodos Island to Auschwitz and wrote this poem in Ladino as a memoir for Auschwitz as 15 stanzas. Let me read one stanza she composed in. De nuestras casas nos quitaron, a la aviación ya nos entraron, nuestros tesoros nos tomaron, al vapor nos embarcaron. We have been slanged out from our houses, they took our treasures, they put us to the boat, we stepped into the boat, we had been stacked like sardines. She composed this stanza of the poem. A friend of Rhodos origin said that this melody is a Rhodos synagogue melody. The second theme, Enkeleuene, which Hazan Sadi of Thessaloniki taught his people in Auschwitz. I would love to Rabbi Alnakave to tell about this more us. The third theme is the funeral hymn sung specifically for the Holocaust in Ottoman Sephardic tune and in Greek Jewry way. So if Rabbi Alnakave could sing or chant for us this Enkeleuenu and also this funeral theme tune, that would be great. And please, Rabbi, tell us about the what Hazan Sadi told you about this Enkeleuenu. This is a very heartfelt story.
It's moving, right? It's moving. First, I'd like to say to all of you that are here with me, I'm so incredibly humbled to be amongst you, greatest musicians, and you're so professional in what you do, and I want to extend blessings to you all. It's really humbling to be here amongst you. God bless you.
It's our pleasure. It's our great pleasure, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
So I'll start with Enkeleuenu, and then we'll say a few words about it. So the tune goes something like this, and this is what we call on Makam Hijaz, right? So, non como muestro Dios, en que Eloheno, non como muestro Signore, en Cadoneno, non como muestro Rey, en que Marqueno, non como nuestro Salvador, en que Moshiach. It's such a beautiful piece, right? It has 5. Thank you so much. God bless. It has 5 paragraphs about the same. It's a very ancient hymn, probably from what we call the Gaonic period, over 1,000 years ago. And in the Sephardic communities, this became a loving piece. I remember it as a child, we all love this piece because it's translated into the language that we understand. So it's in Hebrew and it's in our Spanish, like we say, el español nuestro. We say it in Ladino. And it's a very, very special piece. And the story behind this is, it's some years ago, probably in 1989, 1990, I was in Florida and by chance, I walked into a small synagogue that was in the area, it's called South Beach, Miami Beach. And there was there a reverend, a cantor by the name Sadi Nahmias. I sat with him, not knowing what I was going to get, the things that he was going to tell me. As we began to speak, he all of a sudden reached to his elbow, his shirt, and he opened it up and he showed me the numbers that he had. And you understand that Holocaust has been, by and large, the history of the Sephardic Holocaust hasn't been really spoken about that much. And to hear him tell me the story of what happened, he was a cantor in Salonika, a young man. Makam is a very big thing in the Ottoman Turkey. And back then, even Salonika belonged to the Ottoman Turkey. And so they sang with Makam. And he told me he knew about 32 Makams as a child, as a young man. Unfortunately, he was taken with the rest of the community. The community was practically erased. And he was taken to Auschwitz. And the story went like this. When he came to Auschwitz, he saw the anguish of the people. And he didn't know. They didn't know what to expect. They already had seen so many horrors, so many horrible things. And as they walked all together, he decided to sing Enke Elohenu, to uplift the spirit of the people with him. This is a tune that everybody knew, he told me. So he thought that by him singing, it would uplift everybody around him. And so it was. He sang Enke Elohenu to the humming of the people around him as they all, full of anxiety, walked together to a destiny unknown to them. He said to me that at that point, there was a soldier, a Nazi soldier, that walked over and he pulled him out of the line. And he said to him, "You sing Greek, and I like Greek music. You're going to stay with me, and I'm going to keep you next to me alive, and you'll sing to me whenever I want." And he said to me, this is what allowed him to survive in Auschwitz. it was such an incredible story, and it made such an impact to me. The tune that I just sang, it's unique. The Enkelohenu, it's unique to the Salonika community. And that's why we thought with Renan that this would be a fitting piece for such a concert.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. I think we're going to change gears, unless, Renan, is there something else you wanted to add here?
No, thank you.
So I'd like to change gears and get to the last piece that we're going to be performing or have performed on April 20th, and that's the symphonic poem written by Michel Assael. And to introduce some of that, I'd like to bring in Dr. Joe Halio. Joe, if I could get you to join us on stage here, on our virtual stage. Dr. Joe Halio is the president of the Foundation for the Advancement of Sephardic Studies and Culture, and is a key figure, as you already heard from Renan, a key figure really in the development of the Carnegie Hall concert and the inclusion of Michel Assael's piece in this concert on April 20th. As I understand it, and Joe Halio can tell us more about this, but Joe was friends with Dr. Albert Menashe, who was at the Sephardic Home for the Aged in Brooklyn. And Dr. Menashe had published a firsthand account of the Nazi effort to murder the Jews of Greece. And then Dr. Menashe also was aware of this symphonic poem from Michel Assael. So let's see if we can get Joe out here. Sorry, looks like we might be having some problem. I'm not sure. We've got, oops, there's the wrong one.
There you go. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We don't see you, Joe, do we?
You have to allow the video.
Okay.
I see him.
Yeah, great. So Joe, tell us.
Okay.
Lead us into
First of
this
all,
last piece.
First of all, thank you, Renan, for including this piece in the concert. And thank you, everybody, for your performance. And thanks to everybody who's been working for months to make the concert happen. You see most of our crew are here working on the concert. Just to backtrack a little bit, as Thorin said, it's almost a miracle that the music has finally come to us now. You heard a little bit about Dr. Menashe, but Dr. Menashe was a well-known, renowned physician in Salonika before the Second World War. And because he was a physician and an officer in the community, he was one of the last people to be transported from Salonika to Auschwitz. So he was able to watch and chronicle the entire destruction of the city by the Germans in 1943, February and March of 1943. And when he arrived in the camp, he was immediately told not to tell the Germans that he was a doctor, but to tell them that he was a musician. He had been a renowned musician in Salonika as well. He studied at the Music Conservatory in Salonika when he was young, and he studied music while he was in medical school in France, in Toulouse at the Music Conservatory there. And he had won several prizes in flute competitions in France. And when he came back to Salonika from his medical studies before the war, he was instrumental in setting up a community orchestra in Salonika. And it was an informal band, but they made music for the community and they got together and played music informally. And during the 1930s, Michel Assael, who was younger than Dr. Menashe, had also become a well-known musician in Salonika. For sure, played with the community orchestra, and they knew each other. And when they were in the camp together, Dr. Menashe had, I guess, the luck of being immediately sent to the men's orchestra. And when he heard that the orchestra needed an accordion player, his first recommendation was for Michel, and Michel came into the orchestra, and they were able to survive in the concentration camp playing music. And they were both instrumental in getting other musicians into the orchestra, especially their families. Michel's two sisters were musicians, and Dr. Menashe's daughter had studied music as well. and they were in the women's orchestra at Auschwitz. They survived in the women's orchestra, except for Dr. Menashe's daughter, who did not survive. You heard Renan say that it's likely that Michel and Dr. Menashe played the orchestra while Victor Ullmann went into the gas chamber at Auschwitz. But Dr. Menashe wrote in his book, which is a chronicle not only of Salonika, but of the camp and the return to Salonika. Dr. Menashe describes how he watched his daughter on one particular day march into the gas chamber with 800 other girls, young girls from Salonika that day also. Well, when the war ended, Dr. Menashe immediately put to paper his experiences of the camp and wrote his book, his eyewitness memoir called Birkenau, Auschwitz II, How 72,000 Greek Jews Perished. And the book was published in English right after the war when he got back to Salonika by contacts in New York. And the book raised quite a bit of money for the Greek community, the Greek Jewish community in Thessaloniki and in Athens. And Dr. Menashe became president of the community, stayed there for 5 years. And when he felt that the community was in good hands with the younger people, he decided to emigrate to the United States. Came to New York and was able to help Michel Assael emigrate to New York as well. The community in Salonika at the time was struggling to eat, and there wasn't that much opportunity for musicians at the time after the war. And they felt it was best for Michel and his family to come to New York, and they did. And Michel here in New York became a very popular Sephardic musician, a very popular band leader, and known in the entire community, and played for the entire Sephardic community at almost all of our weddings and bar mitzvahs and parties and community affairs, and he became so popular. I met Dr. Menashe at the Sephardic Home for the Aged, where he was the physician in residence there. And I met Michel, of course, at many of the parties. I stayed friendly with Dr. Menashe his whole life, and until he passed away at the age of over 90 in 1992. And when I started to do Holocaust projects, I made 2 documentaries about the Holocaust in Greece, which will be shown in American Sephardic Federation in the Sephardic Film Festival in April 3rd. Michel had come to the Sephardic Jewish Center in Forest Hills and saw the documentary. And we talked about it, and he told me about the symphonic poem that he had written, which was directly inspired by Dr. Menashe's book. Having come to New York and having known Dr. Menashe before the war and after the war, when he saw Dr. Menashe's book, he said to Dr. Menashe, I'm a musician, I can't write a book, but I can write music, and I will write music in memory of the victims who perished. And he wrote his symphonic poem in memory of the victims who perished. And when he told me about it, I asked him to show me the score. And he said, no, it's not possible. It will never be played. How can you help? You're a doctor. You don't have any musical contacts. You're not a musician. And I spoke to him many times afterwards and asked him to show it to me, and he declined so many times. I think maybe out of modesty, or maybe not already being older and not really seeing the possibility of it being performed. And it never happened. I had promised Dr. Menashe many times that I would republish his book. But things happen and life gets in the way sometimes, and it didn't happen till just last year. And when the book was finally published, Deborah Assael, Michel's daughter, approached me and said she was able to find the symphonic poem score and presented it to me. And to me, it was a miracle. It was almost a miracle happening. And Michel, her father, was right. I'm not a musician. What could I do with this score? I turned to a friend of many years, to Renan, who I know is a renowned musician in Turkey. And I showed the score to Renan and asked her to look into it. And she did. And she showed it to the maestro, who I met personally at United Nations in 2020. And of course, Renan was instrumental in including the piece in this concert, Hymns from Auschwitz. And through Renan and our contacts here in New York, and through Martin Elias, another Sephardi with family from Greece and Turkey, we were able to encourage the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County to be the presenting organization for the concert. And things got underway for preparations. And I'm so happy to say that we'll have the concert on April 20th. It was postponed from COVID from January, but we're going ahead and it will be performed in April. And thanks to Deborah Assael for really bringing it out at this time and making it happen. And Deborah can tell you much more about it. Debbie herself is a well-known professional musician in New York. She's a cellist and plays for many musical productions here in New York, and a member of New York Pops. And let's hear from Debbie, and she'll tell us more about the music and about her father and how important this music is. Thanks, Deb.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Joe. I'm smiling because I'm so happy to see everybody. And I'm also a bit amused because Joe spoke of my father and how he was, no, that'll never happen. My father's pessimism was always kind of present. But I want to thank Joe and Renan. They are the two masterminds of the concert. As they explained in detail, Joe never forgot about the piece, and Renan managed to put it on a concert, give it its first public performance. Of course, my fervent wish is that my parents were here to hear this, but I will be there with my family and my children, my father's grandchildren, to witness it. And I do think part of my father's hesitation with getting a performance, I think technology is tremendous today. I was able to scan the score, and Joe sent it to Turkey, to Renan. And, you know, back in the days before all of that, in order to play my father's piece, he would have had to put an entire orchestra together. And he tried. It wasn't that he didn't try. Early on in his, when he finally came to New York, he submitted his compositions to many different orchestra conductors. I actually have in my father's old papers, my mother was a fantastic secretary. She was actually secretary to the president of Voice of America while she was married to my father. And she wrote all of his letters, and they tried to get his pieces performed, but I'm kind of digressing a little bit. But I do think technology just made it possible for us to finally get this performance. In terms of, you heard a lot about the stories from the concentration camps and the impact of music on my father's life. I was rewatching some of his Shoah tapes, and we're going to see one short clip right now. But I just want to mention that one thing that I was not totally surprised at, because I thought about it a lot, but the interviewer asked my father, when you were sent to the ghetto, what did you take with you? And my father said, my accordion, because I thought I might work there. And I thought, if I had to run out of my house, if something was on fire, what would I take? I would grab my little doggy, but I would grab my cello, because that's the one thing that means the most to me, because that's how I make my living and that's how I work and that's my livelihood. So we're just going to see now, Thoran, if you want to play a short clip from my father's testimony.
Okay, let me just remove the spotlights so that we definitely see the video. Hold on one second here while I go through this. The audio might be a little low, so I'll just ask people to turn up their volumes.
This is a composition that I wrote around 1948 when I came back from concentration camp. I was in Athens, and in memory of the concentration camp Auschwitz. And it's written there, my how I felt writing that. This is a symphonic poem.
How long is this?
There was 2 years before coming.
How long is the actual performance?
No, they didn't perform. They didn't perform, but I sent this when they gave me scholarship at the New York College of Music.
I hope people were able to hear that at the end. I find it so powerful, where the host, the interviewer asks Michel Assael, how long is this piece? And when he starts talking about how long it took to develop, and then she says, no, how long is it when you perform it? And he says, it's never been performed. And that's what we're gonna have on April 20th. It moves me. Debbie, tell us a little more about your father and this piece.
I mean, if I could take a minute to just read what you actually saw. I have the original copy of, it was as soon as I opened the first page of the score, I saw this typewritten sort of description of the musical motifs in the piece. It's a bit music centered in a sense, like it kind of describes specifically what's going on in the music, but it's short. So I'll just take a minute to read it. It's also kind of written with sort of florid language that I think my father must have been sitting with an interpreter, but the other interest my father had in his life was poetry. So this kind of makes sense because it's pretty poetic, although translated. This symphonic creation ascribes the physical suffering of the composer, who after being a hostage of the Germans was saved from the martyrdoms of the homonymous concentration camp. It begins with the manifestation of the sentiments that provoked a vague danger from the impressions of his first confinement in a group concentration camp and the tearing of the separation from his folks. The melody that predominates in this uncertain and unknown danger expresses the agony and fear of the soul with fluctuations and undulations. It follows the storm of the soul and more generally the deep pain from the tragic position of the hostages within the darkness of the camp's hell that terminates with the presto con fuoco, which is a very fast part of the music, in the depiction of the unconceived agony of the soul during the moments of the selection of the ones about to die. The same melody is repeated, relapsing into a mournful march in memory of the innocent victims of Nazism. Now the timidly distant and faint hope that is resounded by the hum of the Allied airplanes starts to grow rosy. Doubt and hesitation possesses the soul of the hostages. Hope's hesitations are rendered in the first 8 meters by harp, bell, and tremor of violins. Then the agony prevails again, repeatedly alternating with continuously stronger hope that finally prevails and dominates and remains from then on the principal mark of the melody. And so hope culminates in a painful triumph that incarnates the chagrin, the grief, and the anxiety of the martyrical life of the concentration camp. Interpreting the sentiments of freedom and joy that now rise, raises the soul in hymns and sends greetings to his liberators. So I was also very moved reading this, that he would include so much of his emotions that he was not able to express, like Dr. Menashe, in a book, but was able to express it in this I don't know what more to say other than, and again, in one of my father's show tapes, he just repeatedly says that the interviewer would kept asking him about different things, and it was always music, music, music. He was completely single-minded, and it gave him his survival. It gave him his livelihood as a young man in Salonika, his survival in the concentration camps, and my two aunts as well. And though it was a struggle for the first 5 years after the concentration camps, when he finally did come to New York, he managed, as Joe said, to start an extremely successful dance band, and knew the entire Sephardic community. And in his retirement and older age, music became such a source of comfort to him. He attended a lot of concerts. He came to my concerts. It was just everything to him. And I don't know, how to express that more than it was just his whole life, his family and music. And again, I'm just so honored that this piece is being played. And we're really looking forward to April 20th.
Thanks so much, Debbie. And I got to say, when I hear you reading his description, I want to hear it. I want to hear the poem, the symphonic poem. I'm really looking forward to the presentation and the premiere on April 20th. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. We have to wrap up shortly, but I want to invite anybody out there who has questions for our various panelists about the concert or about some of the material that they've already discussed. Please use the Q&A feature of Zoom and put it in. And maybe I'll get us started, and I'll just ask you where you are, all of you. Where are you emotionally a month away from the concert? Are you excited or nervous, or are there particular things that are on your mind? Where are you a month away? Anybody?
I'm personally extremely humbled, very excited, and nervous. All the things that you said. I don't know how to mix it. It's all mixed in. So
Understood.
Very special, very special.
And also, I'm sorry, Maestro. I was frightened when I heard the great Maestro's name, Gürer Aykal. I was so frightened. But after 2 years, I think I'm little getting used to it. And I'm so excited to meet personally, physically, with Maestro and all of you.
Maestro.
Thank you. This piece, everybody thinks Assael didn't hear. No, he already heard everything, and he wrote, it's I don't know, do you see or not? It's all there.
Yeah.
Whatever they be, his daughter, she read a little note, which is wonderful, but it's already here, so I'm so happy, this is great chance for me too. This beautiful piece, and 20 April, everybody is going to share that. I'm so happy. And Renan, I would like to have the note, what the Debbie read. I would like to, could you send me?
I have it already. Sure, I have it already.
Very much. And thank you, Rabbi, very much. And you're going to be my soloist. I'm so happy. Elçil, çok güzel yazmışsın. You are the wonderful piece, but it's so difficult, actually, so difficult.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And I'm sorry again for my eye, okay? Sorry.
I'll jump in for a minute. Thank you, Maestro. I wanted to say you're absolutely right. That's the gift of a composer. They hear
Yeah.
everything in their head and they put it on the paper. Beethoven was deaf at the end. He composed his 9th symphony while he was deaf. So they do know
Of course,
what
your father heard all the music and he wrote there. It's already there. It's, you know, I know it's Selaniki. I told you this. It's the music is not far from my music. So I'm so happy about it.
You know, one of the things that it strikes me particularly on this program is I know that you are all joining from different parts of the world. And so it's very nice that you were all able to join us for this program, but it makes me even feel that little extra warmth for what it'll be like on April 20th when you're all in the same place, and not just any place, but at Carnegie Hall. Now, I realize there's great performance venues all across the world, but for Americans, of course, Carnegie Hall holds a special place. And so really, this is going to be a tremendous concert. So I would like to wrap us up. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. I just have it in the chat one more time. For those of you who are watching, you'd like to buy a ticket, this is the discount code to allow you to buy a ticket to the Carnegie Hall performance, where you can get 25% off the discounted price there. And you'll hear what we're talking about. In some ways, this is just meant to be a sneak peek, just meant to be a teaser, but we're all looking forward to hearing this music in person in Carnegie Hall. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching. And I look forward to seeing all of you on April 20th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.